laser safety officer. You get 3 jobs and 1 paycheck. It's a really good deal. Okay. I'm here to provide a little training to you about radiation safety here in the hospital. Hopefully I won't bore you to death. Why do we bother controlling radiation? Well, I think everybody understands that radiation can hurt people. Okay? There's always some risk from exposure to ionizing radiation, no matter how small the dose. And radiation is a carcinogen. It's probably the best studied carcinogen out there. And on the other hand, there are great benefits of using ionizing radiation. In some cases, it can be used to cure cancer. And because of we have to weigh the benefits versus the risk to make sure that everybody's safe when they get treated in the hospital. Because we work for the Navy has some very big ticket radiation safety programs. They have a nuclear weapons program, they have a nuclear propulsion program, they have an industrial radiation safety program, and a medical radiation safety program. So they've got 4 programs out there. And if we have a problem with any one of these programs, it looks bad on the Navy. And we don't want anything that we do in the hospital to make us look bad with the Navy. You probably have never had to sit through a radiation safety class in any other hospital that you worked at, unless it was a naval hospital, because of the fact that we just control radiation with such gusto. Those are some healing arts of radiation. Healing arts from radiation. I'd like to draw your attention to the background radiation down there. It tells us that we get 2 millirem a day from natural sources. And I brought my Geiger counter in here to demonstrate that. You'll hear some little clicks going off. And those are from natural background that we get exposed to 365 days a year. And it comes from several sources. It comes from cosmic rays from the sun. It comes from rocks and minerals in the soil, which we call terrestrial radiation. It also comes from the food we eat. Does anybody eat potassium as part of their diet? Yes, pretty much any food that you eat is going to have potassium. Bananas are a big source of potassium. If I put this, this is salt substitute, which is potassium chloride for a salt-free diet. Doc may tell you to go on using the salt substitute and regular sodium chloride. You'll notice that the count rate is increasing. And that's because all potassium is naturally radioactive. And you know the old saying, you are what you eat. So guess what? We are all naturally radioactive. So one of the things that the Joint Commission wanted us to notify people about was the amount of radiation exposure that you get from ionizing radiation. And this background includes 300 millirem that we get annually. I mean, millirem is simply a measure of the dose of radiation. We get about 300 millirem a year from medicine. And this is not including any kind of interventional radiation exposure or any kind of dose where we're trying to heal somebody with it. It's just strictly diagnostic uses of radiation. No therapeutic administrations are included. We get about 300 millirem a year from that. And here are some of the doses we get. Mammogram, about 70 millirem. Spine X-ray series, 70 millirem. Hand or foot, because it's less thickness of material to go through, gets much lower radiation exposure. And the big doses are here in the CT scan, about 1,000 millirem for a CT scan. And any of you are docs that operate a fluoroscopy unit, one of the things that one of my jobs here in the hospital is to test X-ray machines and fluoroscopy units. The limit is 10,000 millirem a minute. So that's pretty high dose rate that can come out of a fluoro unit. And also nuclear medicine, example, a bone scan, which is probably our most popular study, around 400 millirem. Because there is some risk from any exposure to ionizing radiation, we practice a concept called a LARA, as low as reasonably achievable. And what that means is we're going to try to use as low a settings on our x-ray machines, use as little fluoro time as possible, and still get a good image for the radiologist to look at to help diagnose the patient. And you say, well, what do I have to do with this? Well, to help us get it right the first time, if you enter data in CHCS, perhaps a patient needs to have their right leg x-ray, and you input the improper data, you put the left leg in. Well, we have to, unless our x-ray tech catches that by talking to the patient, we'll end up double dosing the patient, double dosing the x-ray technologist, and double dosing the folks in the x-ray waiting room. So everyone has a responsibility to try to make sure we get the right shot the first time. So there are three physical methods we use to minimize radiation exposure. And I just talked about one of them, time. Reduce the time of exposure. Or go easy on the fluoro pedal if you're a doc that's using a fluoroscope. The other two I like to show with my Geiger counter. This is a Fiesta-ware plate. It's very popular in the 60s, you can tell by the bright orange color. The glazing that makes it orange is actually from uranium, and it's slightly radioactive. But if you notice, as I move the plate just a short distance away from the detector, the count rate markedly decreases. Now this is what's called the inverse square law, or what I like to call Frank's fireplace law. If you get up to your fireplace, and it was pretty chilly this morning, you might have turned it on to warm up a little bit, and you get up to that fireplace, and you say, it's nice and toasty warm here. But you take a couple of steps back, and you say, well, where did the heat go? Well, the heat from a fireplace and radiation from a radioactive source or an x-ray machine behave identically. If you take 2 steps back, it's going to cut it by a factor of 4. 3 steps back, it's going to cut it by a factor of 9, etc. So distance is your friend when you're dealing with x-ray units or radioactive materials. Another thing we use is shielding. This is a cutaway from an x-ray room walls, normal gypsum wallboard on one side and some lead on the other side, and went to great extent with a nice saw to cut out a piece for this demonstration. But if I put that over the detector, you can't even see the plate. And it's not a magic trick. I'm not Houdini. Rapper scratching a record. Now you may have been involved with using lead aprons. I brought in a lead lap shield here to show you how efficient these items are that you may wear, especially if you're doing fluoroscopy procedures. You're in there adjacent to the fluoroscope, you need to be wearing a lead apron. If I put that on there, works just as easily as the hardcore lead. It will help prevent you from getting exposed to the ionizing radiation. Now, the reason I'm having to provide a lecture to you this morning is because we here at the hospital have a Naval Radioactive Materials Permit, and it's granted to the Chief of Naval Operations by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and authorized us to have radioactive material here in the hospital for the performance of nuclear medicine studies. And it carries the weight of law. And I'm in one of the few positions here in the hospital where not only can I get fired if I make a big mistake, but I can get fined and imprisoned if I really make a big mistake. And there is a physicist in France right now who's sitting behind bars for 5 years for miscalculating doses to patients. And one of the requirements in my permit is that you get an introductory lecture on radiation exposure here in the hospital. And by you filling these chairs, you're keeping me out of jail. And I appreciate that immensely. Our permit allows us to use material only in certain locations in the hospital. The nuclear medicine clinic, which is directly beneath the emergency room, operating rooms 1 and 3, and we've just recently added rooms 5 and 6 because they're renovating operating rooms 1 and 3, and the cardiac stress test lab. And you'll know one of these rooms is authorized because you'll see a nice radioactive material sign on the door for that area. And this is a thermoluminescent dosimeter that is placed there to measure radiation exposure to people who are just passing by or decide, well, that's a nice place to hang out. Let me hang out by this door that's got the radioactive material sign on it. If we wanted to use radioactive material in another place in the hospital, we'd have to get our permit changed, and that has to go up to the CNO's office to get that changed. We get deliveries of radioactive material from Cardinal Healthcare Monday through Friday, typically around 6:15 in the morning. You'll notice there's a very tiny radiation symbol on the box that he's carrying, and they know where to deliver the material. You might think, well, it's a radiopharmaceutical, it needs to go to the pharmacy. Well, no. This material only goes to nuclear medicine, and we've instructed all of the couriers on how to get to our location, and there's actually a route specified for them to take to get to our location. But like all of us, we get days off, so does the Cardinal Healthcare guy. And he may or she may decide that they don't know where they need to take it, and they may go to the pharmacy. And what we want you to do is not accept a package of radioactive material that's presented